Do you want Detroit sports talk done right? Yeah! If you want it, you got it. It's Detroit sports talk with attitude. It's the Knee Jerks with Eno and Big Al.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like at this time to introduce to you one of the finest running backs in the United States of America, and our number one pick, Barry Sanders.
Here's Isaiah. Let's see what we got. All the way up. Go!
We might not be in your car or on your transistor radio, but we're bringing you the best of Detroit sports past, present, and future. It's time for the Knee Jerks with two guys who know Detroit sports. Here's Greg Eno and Al Beaton.
It's August 10th, 2021. It's, well, I hate to put it like it's post trade deadline in MLB, and it's pre-exhibition season in the NFL, but that's always time for the Knee Jerks, Detroit Sports Talk with Eno and Big Al. I'm the Big Al of the equation, longtime Detroit-based podcaster and blogger Al Beaton. Joining me, as always, is the man who knows a lot of things about a lot of things, and is owner of the cutest dog in the world, and that would be Greg Eno. What's up, Greg?
Al, you got to talk. How can you not talk about Bean? It's just sacrilege.
Yeah, and I've changed from this side of the Mississippi to the entire world, so I'm catching on here.
I noticed that on my directive, by the way. That was very good, very good. Doing very well. Thank you so much. I am Greg Eno from my WordPress Out of Bounds blog. Check me out there pretty much every week. New piece every week. Just did one about baseball scorekeeping. I thought that was a little bit of fun to talk about how we all keep score in our own different way and how it's sometimes can be passed down from generation to generation. So check that one out. Follow me on Twitter at Greg Eno. Follow the Knee Jerks on Twitter at the Knee Jerks. And of course, Al, toward the end of the show, will tell you, as if you don't already know, how else you can listen to the podcast. I do have an announcement to make about the podcast. Guest wise, we're excited to announce that we'll have our old friend Ken Kal on the show, the radio voice of the Red Wings, on September the 7th.
He scores! I can't do that ever. I can't get the octave he gets. So.
Right. Kenny is a great guy, and we had him scheduled for just before COVID hit.
Right,
and he had a personal thing. He had to cancel on the day of the show. He felt horrible. I said, "Don't worry about it." He says, "I love your guys' show. I'll be happy to come on." So,
and then the world came to an end, and here we are. So,
basically. So we'll be talking with Ken on the 7th of September, just before training camp starts for the Red Wings. So that'll be a good time for that. So he's looking forward to it. He's a big fan of the show, and he's happy to come on. So we're happy to have him. So that's that announcement. So we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk some Tigers, kind of a surprising extension of Jonathan Scope and some other things going on there. We've got some little bit of Red Wings, a little bit of Cade Cunningham, maybe some Kirk Cousins in there. We'll see what we can get to. But before we do any of that, we're going to play a game that we like to call Whose Birthday Is It, Maestro?
We baked you a birthday cake. If you get a tummy ache and you moan and groan and woe, don't forget we told you so. Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Everybody knows how we play this game by now. I'll give Al a clue or two or three of an individual whose birthday it is today in the world of sports. And if Al can correctly guess that person within the first two clues, he will receive a set of 4 General tires, because sooner or later, you'll own General.
Oh, boy.
This person now made his name in the world of baseball, I will tell you that. He's still with us. He's 88 years old, God bless him today, born in the state of 1933. He was a predominantly American League outfielder. All but one season of his 14-year career was spent in the American League. Was involved in one of the most, famous trades in baseball history, I'll tell you that. And he was also is also a native New Yorker, and I'll stop right there.
And what year was he born, you said?
1933.
1933, which put his career in the 50s and the 60s. And he said one of the most famous trades in baseball history. And he said all but 1 year of his career was the American League as an outfielder. Okay.
Yeah.
Famous trade. I'll just throw it out there and say Rocky Calaveto. You're kidding. I was right.
You were right. You're your own general. You own general. Sooner or later, you own general. And you are correct.
Boy, you sound shocked that I got.
Well, because I wasn't sure if I gave you enough. I didn't give it a lot to go on.
No, you didn't. But
the famous trade was
famous trade in that time period weren't bigger than when you trade the home run champion for the batting champion.
Exactly. Yeah. And Rocco Domenico Calaveto, better known as Rocky Calaveto, was born in New York City in 1933. Played for the Tigers, of course, from 60 to 63. Was with the Indians when that famous trade that you just mentioned was made for Harvey Keene. The funny thing is about Calaveto is that he eventually got into a contract dispute with Jim Campbell, which is something you never want to do.
Right.
Rocky wanted to be paid more than Al Kaline, and Campbell said absolutely not. Nobody will be paid more than Kaline as long as I'm the GM of this team. And so what did Campbell do? This is when you could do this kind of stuff. When you didn't have agents and stuff.
Right.
Campbell traded him to the Kansas City A's, which was like trading him to
Siberia.
Right.
Yeah.
And Calaveto lost that battle for sure. Went to the A's, although only played for the A's for 1 year. Went back to Cleveland. And actually, Rocky, who had a howitzer for an arm. He was, he had one of the biggest arms of an A outfielder in the game. Was also pitched. He's actually got an ERA, I think, of 0.
Yeah,
he made like 3 or 4 appearances in the big leagues as a pitcher, and his numbers are off. If you look at his pitching numbers, they're just like
I just brought him up. He pitched. 5.2 innings pitched and a 0.000 ERA, and he has and a win-loss record of 1-0. So that's pretty damn good.
How many strikeouts in those 5 2/3?
Let's see. Let me bring that up. Career strikeouts. Where are you? Let's see. He had 2 strikeouts.
Okay.
2 strikeouts, 5 walks, though. So his whip isn't so hot.
Right. But no runs scored.
Exactly. And what's interesting about Calaveto, because back then, this is before advanced metrics.
Yeah.
Calaveto was a far, far better player than Harvey Keene.
Yeah,
Harvey Keene was essentially a singles hitter with no power.
Right.
And Rocky, who played who really wasn't that great of a defensive player. You said Rocky Calaveto hit for power, hit for average. Not so much. Yeah, he hit for a decent average, but he walked. Hit for power, he walked. And as you said, he was a very good defensive outfielder. The Tigers won that trade going away, but at the time, people thought, if you hit 330, you're a better guy than someone who hits 260, even though Rocky Calaveto's OPS was 100, 200 points more. That just shows how different things were back then.
Yeah.
It was a controversial trade. It really was.
Of course. It was made just before the season began. As a matter of fact, the trade was made when the Indians and the Tigers were about to play each other, so that those guys just traded locker rooms, essentially. Keene was like 3 years older than Rocky, and if you look at Keene's career, after he went to the Indians...
he fell off a cliff.
Exactly, he did. And whereas Calaveto just continued to hit home runs left and right, and eventually finished up with the Dodgers and the Yankees in '68. But he's still with us.
Yeah.
And Rocky, Bob Page says that Rocky Calaveto is one of the nicest men he's ever met in of all sports. Mm-hmm. He's a great guy. He'll sit there and talk to you for hours. And so good to know that he's still around and still doing well. He's in the Cleveland Indians Hall of Fame, 9-time All-Star, aforementioned home run leader in 1959, led the league in RBIs in 65, and hit 4 home runs in 1 game on June 10th, 1959. So Rocky Calaveto, happy birthday. Rocky, you're 88 today.
Yeah, definitely a member of the Hall of Very Good.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right, with that, we got to get as we spent too much time reminiscing about Harvey Keene and Rocky Calaveto, we need to get right to we'll stick with baseball and get to the topics at hand. And first off, we're going to talk Detroit Tigers owner Chris Ilitch spoke on increasing payroll to add top talent this past week. This is after before the trade deadline came around, and Al Avila said any moves they make from here on out are going to be targeted at improving the team, not tearing it down. Essentially, Al Avila is saying we're not rebuilding, we're building. And when asked about all this, Christopher Ilitch was quoted as saying, when it came to increasing payroll, quote, undoubtedly that could happen this winter. He also added, we need to continue to improve our ball club in a high-impact way, and I fully support that. So this is pretty interesting coming from essentially the Tigers have been, since Ilitch took over, essentially, tearing things down. They've traded away large contracts. They've been shedding payroll. The vast majority of their free agent signings have been of the low-end, stopgap veterans to cheap one-year deals. Before this, I think this year was before the Jonathan Scope deal, which we'll talk about. The most money they ever spent on a free agent was that $10 million 2-year deal for Robbie Grossman, who's been an okay player, but he's a legit big league ball player. But you're not going to win. Robbie Grossman is not going to win you a pennant, for example.
Right.
So, and this is a team that has played above 500 ball now for like over 3 months, which is, considering the injuries and the turnover they've had and playing a lot of kids, is pretty damn impressive. So we're starting, the fan base, and I think AJ Hinch, for that matter, they say, no, we got some talent here. Maybe it's time, start the time spending money, getting some guys here. And we're seeing exactly where they need. They need an impact player at shortstop. They need a legitimate middle of the order power bat, and they're going to need at least one decent starting pitcher. Maybe a corner outfielder, but I think the wish list starts with a legit impact shortstop, and we go from there. And the type of things we're talking about, Greg, power bats, a legit shortstop, a starting pitcher, money. That takes, those kind of players are not cheap. And now you have Chris Ilitch at least hinting at he's willing to spend money. I guess the question is, now that we're coming close to put up or shut up time when it comes to Chris Ilitch if he's going to open up his wallet. And we're not even asking him to open up his wallet like his dad did, but at the very, we're not. I don't think fans were expecting Chris Ilitch to have a $220 million payroll, but 150 I don't think is outrageous at all. So it's time to put up or shut up. And this offseason, I think, is really going to show if Ilitch is serious about building a contending, as he keeps talking about, a sustainable contender. But, this team desperately needs a few impact players, and the easiest way to get those is in free agency, and there are several available in free agency this year. It's time to spend some money. I just hope he lives up to his words.
Absolutely. Breaking news. I don't know if you've heard about this. This is totally off topic, by the way. I'm
okay.
sorry to do this. I didn't know Tony Esposito passed away.
The old Hawks, Blackhawks goalie.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Just finding it out now. Pancreatic cancer. That's too bad. But yeah, Chris Ilitch. This scope thing. I have egg on my face because I said last time we were together that once Scope hired Scott Boras as his agent, I said
he thought he was gone. Yeah.
And I also said that the extension was off the table. I said there's no way that he was going to. We both kind of said it.
Yeah.
I definitely said it. There's no way that he was going to sign. Scope was going to sign an extension during the season, and with Boras as his agent. And boy, was I wrong. Yeah. And I tell you, and this is where a player actually put his money where his mouth was, because Scope was saying, "I love it here. Yep. I want to be part of what we're building here." And indeed, for the price that the Tigers got him for, 2 years at $15 million, is in this day and age, and it's not a long term.
And there is an opt out as well. That Scope has a 1 year opt out.
I'm sure that was Scope wanted that because
if he really rakes next year, he's going to opt out.
Yeah, because if you just look at the contract on its face, you say, well, geez, why? If you're Scope, why would you do that? Because now you're going to be 31 when that's over with, and if you're really going for the big bucks, maybe you kind of missed the window. Yeah. But by opting out, like you said, or having that option to opt out after 1 year, well, then you still have a shot of maybe indeed signing 3 or 4 years or whatever, maybe longer somewhere else. But regardless, Tigers have him potentially for 2 more years after this, and that is very good news. The fan base loved it as they should. Mm-hmm. This was an indication now of also Illich putting his money where his mouth is. Although again, this was not a huge from a length of term standpoint and a money standpoint wasn't huge, mm-hmm. and certainly not the kind of investment we're talking about him needing to commit to later on. But it's still a sign that this team is not going to let guys go that they feel like can be part of the core, going forward. So right. Good news there. Illich, I've never really been one to bash Chris Illich. I've kind of defended him when people have said he doesn't want to win, he doesn't care. I don't know where that's coming from. I mean, I suppose being the son of somebody who was as passionate as Mike Illich is, I guess you can never ever satisfy the fans by being as passionate. It's kind of like the Hal Steinbrenner, George Steinbrenner dynamic right. with the Yankees, where the Yankees fans are annoyed with Hal Steinbrenner because he's not firing Aaron Boone and all sorts of things. But the thing about Chris Illich is I've always felt like, he's been a fair, at least with the Tigers. I can't comment on him when it comes to anything else other than the Tigers or the Red Wings. Yeah. So I can't comment on his non-sports stuff. But I've always felt like he's been kind of an upstanding, straight shooter. I never got the feeling that he was BSing us, really. I just never did. And I never bought this notion of he doesn't care. I didn't buy that either. Mm-hmm. So I've defended him in that regard. But this was always going to be kind of an inflection point to me. Was going to be the off season this year, and it sounds like by all accounts that he's going to indeed give Al Avila the opportunity to spend some money if that is needed, and which it is, and he's not going to stand in the way. And so, yeah, he still has to prove it, sure, of course, but he didn't have to make that kind of a commitment. He could have hedged, and he didn't. He just came out and said, yeah, that could definitely happen as soon as this year. I support whatever Al wants to do. If that means spending big, then we'll spend big. Yeah. And he's very approving of AJ Hinch and the dynamic there between he and Avila. So I think I always thought the Tigers were in good hands with Chris Illich. I never thought otherwise. I think you also get a bad rap when you take over at a time when the team is in decline. That never helps. I mean, Mike Illich died essentially right when this whole rebuild started. So that didn't help in terms of the timing of it all. If Mike had passed away when the team was still winning divisions, it'd probably be a different story. But, then now you get unfairly branded as somebody who doesn't care, who doesn't have the passion. What? Because you're not throwing a bunch of money at, throwing bad money after good. I mean, so it's, but it was nice to hear him say it because it's something that I wanted them to commit to. And so it's nice to know that sounds like that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you're right about the Boris thing. That's the interesting part because Jonathan Scope, he's already posted 2.6 WAR this year. That leads the Tigers. I think he led the Tigers last year in WAR as well, where he put up. They bring up his numbers there. He put up 1.3 WAR in a very, very, very short season. 44 games. So Scope has been very productive at playing mostly middle infield, at second base, which is, finding a second baseman who can hit, has a decent glove, the very valuable thing to have. So it's interesting that Boris, who almost always takes his free agents to the open market, actually thought signing this extension was in the best interest of his client. And I'm sure the opt-out played something to do with that. But I also got to wonder if maybe that he's worried about the upcoming labor stoppage as well, which said, which could be playing into this because this essentially assures if there is a labor stoppage next year, could very easily say, well, Scope can just say, I'll just write it out one more year and I got that guaranteed $7.5 million coming to me. So that might be playing into it all. That's something worth watching is Because I think I don't know if you agree with me. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of labor unrest at the during the off season. If they'll be able to solve all the issues that they have between the two parties, I don't know at this point. But the MLBPA is one of the most powerful unions out there, regardless. But regardless of all that, yeah, this is it is a good sign. I agree with you there that the Tigers had to the goodwill alone in signing Scope is a big deal with this franchise because he's a legit Major League ball player. He could play for the vast majority. He'd start for the vast majority of teams in Major League Baseball. And as you said, he has said all the right things about wanting to be here on the ground floor of a team that's building up. So, I have no complaints with this. I'm actually surprised that he only signed a 2-year deal. I would have thought he would, if he was going to sign an extension, it'd be at least 4. And I think it works out for both parties. If Scope still produces, he'll hit the market next year and go for big money. And if he doesn't, well, he's guaranteed. And even up off here for Scope is going to be better than anybody the Tigers have in their system right now at second base. Because there's the middle infield, Greg, is barren of prospects for the most part. I mean, they keep telling us on Isaac Paredes and Willie Castro and Harold Castro and Cody Clemens and all these other players. And right now, it looks like none of them are going to be legit big league ball players. Especially Willie Castro, who we're told is going to be the shortstop of the future. Can't field at short, so they move him to second. He can't field second base, and if you can't field at the middle infield, you got to hit like a goddamn all-star, and he's not doing that. So Scope fills an immediate need. He also fills somewhat of a long-term need at second base. And I know he's playing a lot of first base right now. I don't like him playing first base. He's a far more valuable player at second base. I see why they're playing him at first because they don't have it. That's one of the flaws of how this team was built, is that there's no legit first baseman on this team, period, other than Cabrera. You can't play Cabrera at first base very much. So they ended up moving Scope to first base, and his bat's okay for a first baseman, but his bat's excellent for a second baseman. So, because he's hitting 288 with 797 OPS. He's going to hit over 20 bombs this year. So that's great for a second baseman. First baseman, that's Second baseman, that's what you want. So I have no issues with this, but this leads to, if they fill this hole, they got to figure out what they're going to do at first base. It's either Torkelson or they got to get another a decent a guy who can play multiple positions. They can play a corner outfield and first base, and obviously they desperately need a shortstop, and obviously they're going to need some pitching. So the window is opening up for this team, and now it's up to Chris Ilitch to capitalize on this, because I am scared, Greg, that the Tigers are going to miss out on there's like 5 shortstops that are all-star quality right now. They'll be free agents. If they don't get in the mix on a few of these guys and fail to sign them, this fan base is going to be pissed, because they know what the payroll is right now. They know this team has one of the lowest payrolls in baseball. They only have one big contract on the books at this point, and that's Cabrera's. And his biggest Cabrera's contract it's not, when it's the only big one, that's not going to keep you from making major moves. So they got to go in on some impact players on this offseason, Greg. They have to. If they don't, I know you've been defending Chris Ilitch. There'll be very little to defend if he does not make some impact signings in this offseason. I mean, they have. I'm not asking them to spend $300 million on somebody, but if that means that they have to give shorter term but higher dollars to somebody to get them, then do it. If you don't want to get tied into a 12-year deal, make it 8 years at a higher AAV, average value. Be creative, spend some money, get some impact players in here, because this team is ripe to plug some holes with some high impact players.
Yeah, for sure. Ilitch is nowhere near off the hook entirely yet. He's not out of the woods yet. It was nice to hear what he said last week, but you're right. He's got to, and it can't just be, well, we made an offer and it just didn't work out.
Exactly. That's what I'm afraid of. We made an offer, but kind of like the Max Scherzer thing.
Right.
That always bothered me. We made a legit offer. No, you didn't, because you got outbid by like $80 million.
Yeah, the fans don't care if you have to overpay a little bit to bring somebody in, if that's what it's going to take. If they find out that you could have done it and didn't, then you're right. That you're back to square one with he doesn't care and all that other stuff. But I don't, but I don't think that's going to happen. I really think they will bring somebody in here from among those shortstops that you mentioned. I don't see the team being unattractive for a player. The team is trending upward. You've got a lot of young talent coming through the pipeline. You've got a good manager who is potentially could be in the running for manager of the year this year. You've got
that's a big selling point, AJ Hinch. I think that's a big deal.
You've got a sleeping, hibernating fan base that's ready to fill Comerica Park, 35,000 fans a night again. Those days would be coming back as well. There's a lot to like if you're a player about coming to the Tigers. Obviously, money's going to be a big factor, but I don't think the Tigers are going to have to overbid just to make up for any sort of deficiencies they have in their organization, because there's a lot to like about the organization as a player. If I'm a player who's okay, where do I want to play for the next 4, 5, 6 years? I would think that this would be one of the places you want to go, because the team is definitely trending upward. It's not trending downward, and so I don't think that's going to be an issue either. So I don't think the Tigers are going to have to, overpay for somebody just because they have to make up for any sort of deficiencies that they have as an organization. I know that I'm sure that some of the usual big hitters will be in there in the bidding for some of these guys. I'm sure the teams with the deep pockets will be involved, but still, I mean, with all those shortstops that are available, and you mentioned first base too. That may be a position, if they decide to move Scope back to second base, where they might want to go shorter term with somebody who's maybe a little bit maybe past the 30-year-old mark, to just kind of hold that spot until Torkelson, who by all accounts, I think he's still targeted for first base. I know they were talking about him as a third baseman. I still think he's destined to play first base.
He's not going to play third base. Only he'll be like a guy who'll play third base in the emergency, maybe at the big league level. But he's a first baseman through and through. I'm with you there. But there's you got like Trevor Story, Marcus Seaman, Carlos Correa, Javier Baez. There's a bunch of solid shortstops available in free agency this coming year. Any one of them would solidify the position for several years, and they got to get in on. But they do need to find. They need a couple guys who could go in the middle of the order and pound the ball over the fence. Pure and simple. When your best power hitter is your second baseman, Jonathan Scope, that's that kind of says volumes about your team right now. Or for that matter, one of your best players is a rookie who has never played above A ball until this year, Owen Badu. So, like some of these guys could develop into power hitters like Badu. I mean, he shows all the signs of a guy who could ultimately be a 20 home run guy. But this team really needs someone who could give you 30 to 40 bombs a year. And they haven't had that since Miguel Cabrera, became a singles hitter like 4 years ago. So, there are definitely some holes to fill, and Chris Ilitch could easily fill a couple of them with, by opening his checkbook, or for that matter, be willing to pick up a contract if Al Avila can be creative in the trade market. That's always another option. Like Dave Nabrowski. He built an entire center of the infield via trades. They took him to a World Series with Carlos Guillen and Placido Polanco. They were through trades, and then he paid them. So there are options here, Greg. It's not just free agency, but if you trade for a player, you got to be willing to pay for that player. If you sign them in free agency, you got to be willing to pay. It really does come down to ownership paying the contract that's going to result either from free agency or a trade. So I hope Chris Ilitch lives up to his words. Because I don't trust him yet. I know you defend him. I don't trust him yet. this offseason will say volumes about.
Yep.
All right. With that, I was going to say we need to go to the birthday game, but I'm so smart I got the question right, so we need to. Let's move on to the Pistons because while we were off, apparently the NBA had its draft. Actually, it was like when we last talked, I think the draft was like 2 days away. Mm-hmm. And as expected, Greg, the Pistons selected Oklahoma State combo guard. He's essentially a point guard, but he can play off the ball, and that would be Cade Cunningham, first overall. There was weeks and weeks and weeks of smoke screens and rumors, and we talked about them that the Pistons were constantly saying, "Oh, we're open to taking Jalen Green or making a trade and getting more draft capital. We're not sure yet." But when draft day rolled around, then you got the Woj bomb early in the day saying, "Yep, Pistons are going to take Cunningham," and that's exactly what happened. It didn't take them long to make that pick. They ultimately did what everyone expected they would. And obviously Cunningham is the consensus top talent in the draft. He is now playing in Summer League. Actually, they played their first game a couple nights ago. They played their next game tonight. And everybody's all fired up because in Summer League, you got Cunningham tonight going against Houston and Jalen Green. So, that's a big deal, even though it doesn't mean jack shit, much like it's an exhibition game. But regardless of all that, I don't know what else there is to say about Cade Cunningham. I hope he lives up to the hype. He looks like Greg, because there's all the comparisons already starting to Jalen Green. Jalen Green is a scorer first, last, and always. Cade Cunningham is more of a all-around player who I think is going to fill up stat sheets. But he may not be a dominant scorer, but he'd be the type that's going to fill up, he'll give you the boards, the assists, the steals, and everything else, and he'll fill up a stat sheet while Green will give you points. So, but obviously that's one of the first things fans look at. They go for points. They love points, but, Cade Cunningham is supposed to be the better overall ball player, at least when it comes to an all-around game. Will he live up to the hype? Probably not. How many guys do? But at the very least, Greg, the Pistons do have a history, if you take Darko out of the equation, of doing pretty well with their high draft picks. Isaiah Thomas, Bob Lanier, Dave Bing,
Grant Hill. That
was also what I was trying to think of. So they have done pretty well when they've had a top 3, top 5 pick. So, I guess when it kind of comes down to, will Cunningham live up to this enormous hype? Probably not. Will he be a legit all-star talent? If he's a legit all-star talent, then I think he did pretty good in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as much as a single player can indeed turn the fortunes of an NBA team around. We've seen it time and time again. As much as that is true. Yeah. What's also true is you still need a supporting cast.
Yeah.
You still, as good as LeBron was when he entered the NBA as an 18-year-old, whatever it was, back in 2003, it took the Cavaliers a few years to kind of become a power in the Eastern Conference. It wasn't overnight. And as good as he was. Why? Because they didn't have the supporting cast around him, and they were very bad. Of course, that's what gave them the number 1 pick. Mm-hmm. But, he was Michael Jordan with the Bulls, same thing.
Yeah.
When Michael Jordan, I know I'm comparing eras here, especially with Michael, because I'm going back even further. But when I'm just saying that when you have a generational talent like that, even a generational talent like that, it still takes sometimes 2-3 years to really have that team make a lot of noise in the play. Now it can happen quickly as well, but usually it takes a little bit of time. So
yeah.
Now will Cunningham turn the fortunes around in the sense that the Pistons will have a winning record next year? Maybe. I mean, could he turn a 20-52 team into a 40-plus wins?
They could be contending for the play-in game.
Sure.
How are the playoffs going to work the play-in thing? Yeah,
I look at the people that they've got around him. One more year's worth of they're one more year ahead of him in terms of development, of course.
Right.
I'm talking about Bay and Stewart and Saban Lee and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, it's conceivable that within within 2 or 3 years, the Pistons could be one of the top teams in the conference, of course. So I guess it depends, Al, on how you define live up to the hype.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a 1-year appraisal? Is it 2 years? Is it 3? I mean, I don't think that. I think what's going to happen, Al, in this first year, because the Pistons still aren't expected to be a very good team next year. They'll be better, of course,
right?
But they still won't be considered. They will be in nobody's preseason prognostications as being a conference champion. So the focus is going to be strictly on him, on Cunningham, on how he plays. It's not going to be as much about, even though it should, but it won't be as much about how the team plays. It's going to be how he plays. Now they're already, for example, pumping this summer league game tonight between the Pistons and the Rockets as, of course, Kate Cunningham versus Jalen Lee, as they should. I mean, I understand that it's summertime. Why wouldn't you do that? Number 1 overall pick versus number 2 overall pick. I get it. Is it being made too much of? Of course it is. But that's the way it is. That's the way it goes. But I think that Cunningham is. This is where, again, I've said it 1,000 times. This is where having a coach like Dwayne Casey really is going to come home to roost for the Pistons, because this is a guy, Casey, who is a master of developing young talent. He did it in Toronto. He's doing it in Detroit. And if I feel very comfortable with Cunningham being under the mentorship of Casey. I think that worries me not at all. Zero worries with that. If there were other coaches here at the time, I might be a little bit concerned. But Dwayne Casey, zero concerns in that regard. I think that he's the perfect coach for a guy like Cunningham. And frankly, a guy like Cunningham can rejuvenate Casey even. Casey's like 63 years old, whatever he is. That's not ancient. But, that's getting to the point where, you start to lose the fire a little bit. But I don't think that's going to happen when Casey blows the whistle on the first day of training camp and he sees all these good young players all around him. And don't forget, under the radar, Isaiah Livers and or Livers, how you pronounce it, and of course the kid from Iowa, the player
Luka Garza.
Garza, the player of the year. So there's a lot to work with.
I guess the question is Cunningham going to be Batman or is he going to be Robin? Because you do need more than one star in today's league. The Pistons of 2004 were an anomaly. They were an outlier. There wasn't any single quote unquote superstar, even though you could argue that they had some players with superstar talent. They just weren't considered that. But you, in the era of super teams, you need 2 or 3 players who can play at a very high level, or you need that one guy who can elevate everybody. Like the Greek Freak. Even then, he's still got some very, very, very good players playing with him. And that's I'm still, I don't know. Is Cunningham going to be the alpha dog, or is he going to be the sidekick? And that might take a couple years to determine. And again, that might lead to why the Pistons, might be able to make some moves in free agency. Not this, maybe after Blake Griffin's contract falls off the books after this season. Maybe then we'll be able to figure out if Cunningham's going to be the alpha dog or he needs a sidekick, or if Cunningham is the sidekick and they need to sign that alpha dog.
Well, in NBA parlance, the alpha dog is typically defined as who's that guy who takes the last shot at the end of the game. Who will have the basketball? In whose hands will the basketball be as the clock is winding down, when the shot clock is turned off and the clock is winding down, and it's a tie game or you're down by 1 or down by 2. To me, it's going to be Cade Cunningham. I for sure think he's going to be the guy who's going to be handling the ball. Now, he may not always take that last shot necessarily, but he'll be like the guy who handles the ball in those last moments. There's no question about that. So to me, that makes him the alpha dog. Whoever handles the ball. It just gives me flashbacks to Reggie Jackson.
Pounding the ball, taking the air out of it, and then jacking up a 3 at the buzzer. No, it's just kind of funny. That's how the Pistons were.
I don't see that happening.
I don't see that happening with Cade Cunningham, but that also kind of leads you to the Pistons thought they had guys who were like that, but weren't. if you know what I'm saying.
Right,
and Jackson and Andre Drummond, who people thought, they believed that they were, the Batmans, the Alpha Dogs, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And now they're backups on good teams. So, I don't see that happening to Cunningham, but it's going to be we got to think of this not in like a year or two. We got to think about this is long-term stuff here. He's going to sign a contract, be 4 or 5 years. We really won't be able to make any serious judgments, I think, for at least a couple years. He might be able to put up numbers, but if you're on a bad team, you put up numbers anyway. Is he going to be able to make the guys around him better? That's the question. That's what the Pistons need him to do, and that's going to take a few years to figure out.
Right.
All right, and you're right. I agree. As someone who has watched way too much Big Ten basketball, Isaiah Livers and Luka Garza, I think, are both very good players who could actually contribute this year. Livers is a 3-and-D guy. The guy, and he's a 40% 3-point shooter at Michigan, and Garza, he was an unstoppable offensive force. I mean, he won every award in college hoops. He won the name, as you mentioned, he was the Naismith Award winner as the top college player. But he went in the second round because he plays a style of basketball that is a bit of an anomaly in today's game. He's closer to Andre Drummond than he is to a Joel Embiid, so to speak. But if Garza can shoot, he can help this team because he can extend. That's his calling card. The guy is he was an offensive force. He can shoot from outside, and if that translates to the NBA game, he'll stick. It's just a matter if he can play if he plays defense, if he's able to develop a little quickness, lose a little weight, and be able to defend the hoop, then they really might have something. But that's yet to be determined. But yeah, it's the draft was interesting. I was completely expecting. After last year's shenanigans from Troy Weaver, I was absolutely expecting him to trade back in the first round. So I was actually kind of surprised that he just let it all play out. Other than he did make the one deal, which was he traded before the draft he traded Mason Plumlee and the 37th pick to get the 57th overall pick, which they use on a kid out of Florida State project. So, but they replaced him, Greg, in free agency by signing Kelly Olynyk, 3 years, $37 million, with a team option after the second year. So it's essentially a 2-year deal. And Olynyk is I think he's a better player than Mason Plumlee. He's a different player because he actually can play outside. He shot 39% from 3-point land last year, averaged 13 and 7, splitting his time between Miami and Houston. So it's interesting that they signed. I think this all leads to things advanced quicker than they thought at the center position, and they realized we don't need Mason Plumlee anymore. So they actually, but I was kind of bummed that they had to give away an asset to get rid of his contract. But Kelly Olynyk's a pretty damn good player from what I've seen of him play. Because he's been around for a few years now. He's out of Gonzaga. And he's another guy that it comes down to Troy Weaver wants guys who can shoot the three. That's it. That's today's game. And Olynyk is a big who can shoot the 3-point ball, which Mason Plumlee couldn't. So it's obvious to see where he wants to build his team. He wants to build a team of sharpshooters, and that's where he's headed. And that even showed in the draft with Cunningham, Livers, and Garza.
It's funny. We talk about the evolution of the game, and you mentioned, he's a big who can shoot the three, and shooters will always have, as you know, will always have a place in basketball. That's why guys like Dirk Nowitzki played for so long. If you're a big guy who can shoot, the three ball, you're going to stay in the league a long time. Back when you and I first started following basketball in the 70s, centers were playing forever. And I remember asking Jack McCloskey this, and I don't know if you remember this because I asked him this on the show. I said, why is that, Jack? And I can't remember how we got into this. And he said, well, it's because centers typically don't do a lot of running.
Yeah.
They're these lumbering guys who he said that he was explaining the difference between why they are able to play longer and have more tread on their tires than the little guys who are running around with the basketball all the time. And he says because they just the physical exertion, they're banging their bodies under the hoop, and that does take some out of you. But back when we in the 70s when you and I started following the NBA, it was indeed the center was always the last one to join the offense because he was also the last ball.
Right.
The 24-second clock. By the time the center took his position, 12 seconds had run off the clock at least. It didn't matter because he wasn't going to touch the ball until there was 5 seconds left on the clock anyway. And that's just the way it was. That's just the way the offenses were back then. So now it's shifted, obviously. You're absolutely right. Plumlee, who I thought did a good job here.
Yeah, I have no complaints about him at all. He was a good player.
It just isn't quite the guy. But the shooters can play. If you look back now, Al, at the guys in the NBA whose careers have been extended, a lot of them have been shooters. It's kind of like being, how we used to say, if you're a lefty pitcher, you can pitch in the big leagues until your arm falls off. Well, same thing when if you're a shooter, if you can hit a shot in the NBA, you'll have a job for a long time.
Yeah, Vince Carter played till he was like 65 years old. No, actually, he was over 40, but that says volumes about it because he could shoot. You're right.
Right.
It's interesting because we kind of saw the beginnings of a 3-point of a big man who could shoot from deep here in Detroit because we had Bill Laimbeer here. He was actually he didn't shoot a lot of threes, but he was very effective he actually opened the court. He had seasons where he averaged, he was averaging between 37 and 35% in an era where most guys shot under 30. They were shooting 20% from three.
Right.
And here you got this 6'11" galoot who couldn't jump 6 inches off the ground, hitting that little tippy-toed 3-point shot. And that became a weapon with the Pistons because it really opened up the court for them. And then we had Rasheed Wallace, who was another big man who loved to shoot from outside. And there were times where Rasheed was like, no, yes, he was one of those kind of shooters. But they were guys that they saw how the 3-point shot could be a weapon, and it just took the league a little longer to catch up. And they have now. And you have to be able to shoot a 3-pointer if you want to stick in the league. Especially as a starter or become a star, you have to be able to shoot from deep. It's just how the league is. And when Ray Scott, when the coach comes on the show and begrudgingly agrees that you have to be able to shoot from three, that's really saying something, how the league has changed.
Right.
Because he is the champion of the mid-range jumper.
Right. Yeah.
Which has gone nearly extinct in today's game. You're either shooting within the paint or you're shooting from 30 feet. There's the 19-foot jumper is dead. Right. But that's math essentially. That is math. If you need to be able to shoot the 3-ball, and Troy Weaver is building a team that can shoot the 3-ball, and I am here for it. So, and I remember I mentioned this on Facebook that there was a quote from Troy Weaver before the draft, and they asked him, "So, do you think any of these guys might not be a fit? Who's going to fit your roster?" And he said, and I love the quote: We won 20 games last year. They all fit."
Right. I like that.
So I love it. That's an obvious answer.
Yeah.
You don't worry about fit.
Right.
When you're have the first pick in the draft, you worry about talent, and then you worry. Then you get guys to fit around him.
Right.
That's again why I like Troy Weaver as a GM so far. He gets it. They're at a stage in the rebuild where it's not about fit. It's not about the gelling the team together yet. It's just about finding talent, and he's done pretty goddamn well at finding the talent so far.
Yep.
So, all right, I would say this is time to go to the birthday game again, but I'm going to remind everybody that I got the question correct. So, Greg, what do you think about training camp has started? I believe they had their 12th workout today, the Lions. Under training camp. The exhibition season starts Friday. I'm never going to call it anything other than an exhibition game. This preseason stuff is for the birds. And head coach Dan Campbell, who is making the headlines for his essentially for the sound bites. He's a sound bite machine, and the sound bites make national headlines because they sound so ridiculous when taken out of context, which they almost always are. And he is saying the starters are expected to at least play the first quarter. At this point, Greg, I'm not very hyped about the season at all. Not at all. I know, obviously, when the season starts, I'll pay attention. I'll watch every Sunday when I'm not up north. But I'm not excited about the season at all. I mean, I'm encouraged that I think this team is going in the right direction. I am not going to judge Dan Campbell at all until I see how this team looks on the field. But right now, I am so not ready for the NFL season to start. I don't think it's like when the other day, when they had the first exhibition game of the year, the Hall of Fame game. I didn't even know it was on the schedule. I was flipping channels and go, holy shit, there's a football game.
Right.
It was Dallas and Pittsburgh. And I am so not ready for football right now. It doesn't bother me. I would rather watch the Tigers right now. I'd rather pay more attention to what the Pistons and Wings are doing right now because the Lions really are kind of in the ground floor of a rebuild. And right now, the other three teams in town are just more interesting than the Lions. So, especially because they've been so bad for so long. My hopes have been crushed into just into dust. So they are, I'm just having a hard time getting fired up for the NFL this year. I don't know how you feel.
Well, it kind of snuck up. I know that sounds kind of crazy because how could the NFL sneak up on you? But it did
snuck up on me too. You're right.
It's like, wow, here we are, first exhibition game, Friday, and there's only 3 exhibition games this year because of the 17-game regular season. So which is good. I don't like the 17-game season, but right. I'm all for fewer exhibition games. Of
exactly.
Course. But I mean, the Dan Campbell era, not a lot is expected, of course, from the Lions, which I can understand that. Big question marks at quarterback, and because we don't know how Jared Goff is going to, we don't really know how that's going to go. They still don't have, they don't have a world-class set of receivers.
Oh, God, that's an understatement, Greg.
They have a lot of, maybe scrappy guys who, maybe together, wide receiver by committee, maybe, we'll see.
Yeah, you put them all together, you might get one Calvin Johnson season out of them.
I mean, you got a bunch of pluggers at the running back position, so they're still, kind of, chip on their shoulder kind of a team, which is fine. If that's the way they want to portray themselves, that's whatever, who cares. But yeah, I mean, it's really it boils down to I get the feeling that Campbell has a little bit of wiggle room here. The fans seem to like him. I don't think they're going to hold his feet to the fire like they did with Matt Patricia.
And not with a 6-year contract either. He's safe for at least 2 or 3, for at least 3 years.
And I think the fans understand that even though it was time for Patricia to go, I think they also understand at the same time that this is still. It does not mean that this is not a rebuild. It is a rebuild. You can cry all you want about why it had to be this way, but it is. It's a rebuild. And they do have the makings of a good offensive line, I will say that. Defensive line, seems to be okay. But, we'll see. All this is a we'll see thing. But, they just – if nothing else, Al, I feel like the attitude around the team is different. It seems like a lot of players are glad to see the Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn era be over with.
Yeah.
And sometimes that in and of itself, addition by subtraction, they say that from what I'm reading that Jeff Okudah has shown, at least so far, a lot of improvement. We'll see. But they say that he's taking more charge now. He's becoming more confident in himself, and he's telling other players where to go in the secondary. They say he's playing better. I don't know. I guess I don't know. We'll see. But again, that's another one of those things where a different coaching staff can sometimes bring out different things from people. From all accounts, these coaches that Dan Campbell has brought in are very well respected. They seem to have a really good grasp on their specialty. I know that Anthony Lynn, the offensive coordinator, was trying to fend off a little mild criticism about, well, geez, I'm not seeing it go deep enough, and you're not throwing the deep ball out in training camp. He said, "Don't worry, we will. I have confidence in Jared Goff's arm." So I'm not sure if that was the media trying to create some sort of a, are you concerned about Goff's arm thing, which Lynn squashed. So you don't have to throw deep to win the NFL. I mean, it's not a requirement. When we were talking about the NBA with the mid-range jumper, you can win football games by throwing 12, 15-yard passes, as long as you've got receivers that don't drop the football. Those drops on 2nd and 7, that just completely hamstrung the Lions in the past and really killed drives, put them in third and long situations. Those add up, and you've got a tight end who looks to be an all-pro caliber tight end in Hawkinson. So I think the Lions will probably throw to their tight end more than a lot of teams do, because a lot of teams don't have a tight end like Hawkinson. Mm-hmm. But that's okay. I mean, wherever you can get the first downs, however you can move the chains is fine.
Yeah, it's. I will say this about Campbell, how you mentioned that the fans seem to like him, and he's got a long leash at this point. I think a lot of it has to do with he comes off as genuine.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He wears his heart on his sleeve.
Right.
And for decades, we've either had head coaches who came off as utterly fake, like Marty Mornhinweg, completely dour, like Matt Patricia, insane, like Jim Schwartz, or low key to the point of looking like he was asleep, in Jim Caldwell. So to see a head coach come in here, an obvious players coach, a guy who looks like he's fueled by he just injects Starbucks into his veins, and he's like a human equivalent of a Starbucks and Red Bull mixed together, essentially. And it's a breath of fresh air to this fan base. I don't think the national media really gets that. They just say they get the biting kneecaps quote and some of the other stuff that he has said. Because that's the other thing of head coaches today. You hardly ever see the general managers or the owners speak, so it falls on the head coach, and the head coach is always going. He could say something completely off the cuff that doesn't really mean much, and it's going to be overblown because he's the only guy the media talks to, and shit makes headlines, such as the biting kneecaps quote. So, but I find the guy a breath of fresh air. I thank God that we don't have another Matt Patricia in town. I could not have stood another 3 or 4 years of a Bill Belichick clone who spewed nothing but meaningless cliches. If I ever hear I have to coach better ever again, it'll be too soon. And that was something that Patricia spewed every fucking day for the 2.5 years he was here. So, I hope Dan Campbell works out. But at the very least right now, the guy is a breath of fresh air, and it was badly, badly, badly needed for this franchise.
Well, I think that's a big part of it. I think you hit the nail on the head about Campbell. I mean, that he does. He just seems like he's just one of the. He's one of the fans. He looks like he's one of the fans, or he acts like he's one of the fans. Yeah, like I get it. I'm with you 100%. He played for the Lions, which doesn't hurt.
Helps too. He played here, so he has an idea of what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't hurt. Yeah, that doesn't hurt. I mean, if you have a guy who kind of knows, and it's funny when you come from a winning organization, it's like, okay, he knows the culture. But when you come from a losing organization, it also helps to know the culture. Yeah. You need to have a guy who knows what not to do, or maybe what's gone wrong in the past. Right. And I tell you, he did pretty well in Miami when he stepped in under duress with the Dolphins. Mm-hmm. He was a midseason replacement. He did okay. You know, I did okay, and I'm sure that didn't hurt in terms of him getting the job in Detroit. But yeah, you're right. He's got that. You know, the players seem to buy into it, and
that's what counts,
right
there. It's up to the players buy in. That's all.
But you know, it's all Al. It's all you know. All this is fine and dandy in August. Okay,
exactly.
Let's
see what happens in October.
Let's see what happens on October 25th when the Lions have lost 4 in a row and the season looks like it's going down the toilet again. That's when. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the fans are going to turn on him. I'm not suggesting that. But let's see what his
attitude's like. Right. Exactly.
What is he like? What is he like when that happens? You know, that's what separates the wheat from the chaff, Al, is when you have guys who, and when those moments happen, you can have will he have a Bobby Ross moment where he just flips out and loses it? Or will he be able to be calm, keep things calm and maneuver the ship through turbulent waters? That's where you're going to find out a lot about Dan Campbell as a head coach. Will he overshoot it and go crazy with emotion, or will he say, you know, on that Monday morning press conference when he's 1-5, you know, how will he? So we'll see. That's what we don't know yet. Yep. But again, this is not. He didn't fall off the turnip truck. This guy. I mean, he's been around the NFL for a long time.
Yeah, you don't reach this level being naive. You're not at all.
And like I say, in Miami, everybody who played for Miami had good things to say about him. Yeah. And that was a bad situation he stepped into.
Right.
And I think he was like 4-5 or something with the Dolphins, which wasn't bad considering what he stepped into. He didn't get the full-time job, but that's okay. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot. This is kind of like the whole thing with Chris Ilitch about the wait and see thing. Wait and see with Campbell how he handles that first losing streak and after the season when the team is 4-12 or 4-13, which they likely will be. How does he handle that?
Yeah. It's hopefully we get kind of a happy medium between the insanity of Jim Caldwell and the solemnness of the solemnness of Jim Caldwell and the insanity of Jim Schwartz, essentially. You know, but it's a great point that we'll see how Campbell holds up. You know, when this team has a losing record and the fan base is starting to, we're going to hear the same old Lions, that kind of thing, and we'll hear the media be a little more combative because they're still in the honeymoon period right now, and I'm sure the media right now is just eating up the fact that Campbell's a quote machine. So that they love that. It gives them something to write about. So like you said, that makes what his attitude will be like 2 to 3 months from now will give us a better idea of where this Lions team is going to be heading 2 or 3 years from now. Because you cannot. Dan Campbell cannot be like this for the next 6 years. I don't think any human could do it.
Right.
But it's just that he's trying to lay a baseline. He's trying to get his program installed. And if that means being a bit of an over-the-top quote machine, if that does the job, hey, more power. I'm all for it. So we'll see. Like we'll see what happens. But at the very least, it is a breath of fresh air compared to what we've had the last the last decade. So, all right, we need to talk about Calvin Johnson just for a minute or two, Greg. As we were talking before we started recording, is that there is one subject in this town that we are exhausted of. And that is the disagreement between Calvin Johnson and the Lions. But Calvin Johnson was inducted into the Hall of Fame this past week. They had the official ceremony this weekend. He was inducted Sunday. Johnson and the Lions have continued to bicker over the $1.6 million that Johnson thinks he was owed but was forced to pay back of his signing bonus when he retired before the end of his contract. In an attempt to mend fences, Greg, the Lions reportedly offered Johnson essentially a glad-handing role. Kind of like a casino greeter kind of thing. A 3-year agreement where that's essentially what it would be.
No, I know.
Yeah, 3-year agreement where they would have paid him $500,000 a year for appearance fees, essentially show up at games a few times a year and say hi to the fans. And the Lions would make a one-time payment of $100,000 to his favorite charity. Johnson declined, saying it's not enough. He still feels disrespected. I think it really comes down to he despises Rod Wood. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Could be, yeah.
And in his Hall of Fame speech, Johnson thanked the fans, thanked the city, but did not mention the Lions, very similar to what Barry Sanders did. And now Barry Sanders is back in the fold, but it took a long time for that bridge to mend. It may take, I bet you it takes even longer for Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson is very bitter right now, and he does have some good reasons to be bitter. So, but regardless, it is what it is at this point, and hopefully now that Johnson's in the Hall of Fame, the regular season, we're starting to see football games again, and hopefully this will be the last we'll hear of the story for the foreseeable future. For a very, very long time, I don't want to hear about Calvin Johnson and the Lions bickering over money ever again, because if there's one way to piss off a fan base and make everybody look bad, it's when you have a millionaire arguing with a billionaire. And that's essentially that's what it looks like to the fan base.
Well, you know what, Al? I would slightly push back against that, only because I think that I have written about, and I've said the exact same thing you just said, that the seeing millionaires going against millionaires is not, who cares, essentially. Yeah. But the thing I'm going to push back on you on is that I don't think the Lions fan, I could be wrong, but I don't think the Lions fan base necessarily looks at it that way. Now, I think there are some that do, yes. There are some that could give a crap about that. I get it. But I also think there are a lot of folks that don't look at Calvin Johnson as a millionaire or billionaire, whatever I'll call him. Mm-hmm. It was not a billionaire, but look at him and the Lions as two rich entities going up against each other. I think they look at Calvin Johnson in a much more sympathetic way. Now, there are a lot of people...
I don't know about that if you go by what you see on social media and sports talk radio.
I think we could both pull examples.
That comes off as, when you hear that, is that, well, Calvin Johnson didn't live up to the agreement of his contract, and he needed to pay back his money,
get me wrong.
And he shouldn't be bitter.
Don't get me wrong. He's not off the hook. I am not suggesting that.
No, I'm on Calvin Johnson's side.
Yeah, right. But I think that I'm just saying there's a large portion of the fan base who is on his side and doesn't look at this as, because the Lions' reputation precedes them.
Okay, it goes back decades.
And so they're automatically, just by default, going to be looked at as the bad guy. Yeah. Just by virtue of the fact of the Lions. And the Barry Sanders thing, which didn't help, fans still have that fresh on their mind. Although I think Barry's problem was less with management and more with Bobby Ross, frankly. Yeah. But still, that's very fresh in people's minds. The greatest running back in franchise history, just up and quitting. Although he did play 10 years. It wasn't like he played 5 years. He played 10 years, but still, he probably had another year or two left in him physically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the thing about Johnson is that the Lions botched this. Let's face it. You can say whatever you want about.
I agree with you there.
It's because they completely botched it, and now they're trying to. It's almost like the more they try, and I guess you can give them some credit for trying. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said Rod Wood. I hadn't really thought of it that way until I started thinking about he's been the constant. Yeah. Through all this, because Martin Mayhew's gone, Jim Caldwell's gone, Jim Schwartz is gone, Martha Ford is not gone, but she's not the owner anymore. Right. And Bill Ford's gone, of course. So it's like, well, maybe it is Rod Wood. Maybe it is a Rod Wood thing. Now the Hall of Fame speech, would it have been nice if Calvin had kind of just for 5 seconds put everything down and just kind of said something about the organization. The Detroit Lions gave me a chance when they drafted me or whatever. Okay, he didn't do it, but he did call out the fans, which I suppose that's good. Better than nothing. That was a little disappointing. I wish he would have, because if he had done that, I think he would have gotten a lot of people that are not on his bandwagon, on his bandwagon. Right. Because he could have been looked at as, well, he's the bigger guy. Now, the Lions are trying to buy their way out of this, let's face it. They're trying to throw money at him, which is doesn't look good either, frankly. They're trying to buy their way into this guy's heart, essentially, what they're trying to do. Yeah. Now, they said a couple of years ago, Barry Sanders, that you mentioned that casino greeter analogy, that they were going to make Barry essentially one of those kind of. I remember writing a column.
Ambassador. That's the term they like to use.
I remember writing a column a couple years ago. Said they better not this better not be hokey. They better not be throwing Barry out there as some glad hander, because that's way beneath him. And shame on the Lions if that's what they're going to intend to do. I'm still not comfortable with that relationship. I don't like those relationships, Al. Either you bring a guy in, a former player, either bring him into the organization to do something, or not. Yeah. It's okay to not have – not everybody can be part of the organization after retired. You can't have a job for everyone. You just can't have – the Red Wings have tried. They've tried to give a job to everybody, sort of play for the franchise, but it doesn't – you can't do it. You have to – sooner or later you have to just say there's really no place for you here. Not deliberately say that, but just the reality is there's no place for this person here in the organization. There's really no place for them in the front office. There's no place for them as a coach. There's no place for them anywhere, really. They tried it with Gordie Howe, the Red Wings. They gave him some bullshit vice president job, which he hated, which was way beneath him. They called it the mushroom treatment. And now, and they brought back Spielman, but but Spielman, I think, has something to do. I think he's got. It's a real job. He's leaving a real job, which is Fox commentator, for this other job, which
honestly an easier job at that.
Yeah, this is a real job. This is not glad handing. Okay.
No, I think it says volumes about Spielman that I don't think he would have left a job he was very, very, very good at.
I still don't know. I still don't know what Barry. I still don't know what Barry Sanders does for the Lions. I don't know, and I don't want to know, frankly. Yeah. I wish they would just have kept him out. I don't know why they want this. So this notion of bringing you back as a glad hander or as an ambassador is just. I just think it just doesn't look good. I don't because there's nothing you can do in that role, Al. There's really nothing that one can do in that role that lives up to the reputation you've built. Anything you do in that role is beneath what you've done as a player. Right. So why are you doing it? I mean, I'm not comfortable with it. I don't like it.
Look at the other teams in town, for example.
Yeah.
The Tigers have done it with a few players, but they seem to have legitimate advisory roles in their front office, like Fallon Trammell and Kirk Gibson and Willie Horton and Al Kaline for years.
Sure.
And then you have the Red Wings, as you said, and Jim Leland as well, who was still considered an advisor to the team.
Right.
The Red Wings, who they've given ex-players legitimate role, jobs, not just as ambassadors or advisors, but they actually have there's scouts and player development roles.
Right.
And then the Pistons don't even bother with stuff like that.
Right.
Which is fine as well. Which is fine as well.
That's fine.
The guys consider themselves Pistons are Pistons, but they really don't have a role of the organization. Right. And then you have the Lions, who, as you said, I have no idea what the hell Barry Sanders does. The only guy I remember that seemed to have a role in the organization they brought back was Charlie Sanders.
Yeah.
Who seemed to have a legitimate role in the front office.
Sheldon White
was another one, but Chris Spielman is probably the first one since this seems to have a legitimate front office role that doesn't involve showing up on TV occasionally saying "Go Lions," like essentially what Barry Sanders does.
Right.
And it sounds like that's what they wanted Calvin Johnson to do. And I think you did nail it. That's beneath both of them. If Barry Sanders is willing to do it, more power to him.
I'll give you
it's obvious Calvin Johnson isn't.
I'll give you an example. Joe Namath. Joe Namath is, if you follow him on Twitter, Joe Namath is the biggest Jets fan in the world, as he should be. He's Mr. Jet, but the Jets don't employ him. Yeah. He's not a paid shill, but when you read his Twitter account, it's a lot. It's like he's a Jets fan, and he's rooting for the Jets all the time. He's always talking about the team, and he's talking about them in first person, we, us, that kind of thing. Yeah. And he'll die a Jets fan. He's a through and through. But the Jets never, which one of the few things the Jets have ever done right, by the way, is they never brought him back in some sort of capacity. He's always been. They've never done that, which they could easily have done with him. But that's an example of someone who they've not done that with. And I like the delineation between I'm a former star Hall of Fame player who roots for the team on his own time versus I'm just this shill, and I just don't. It just makes me very uncomfortable. But back to Calvin Johnson, I really wish he had taken 5 seconds to thank people. If he's got a beef with Rod Wood, okay, for example, to use your theory, if he's got a beef with Rod Wood, why can't he say something good about Martha Ford? Why can't he say something good about I don't know, somebody who one of his former coaches? Why couldn't he have said, because Jim Caldwell was there, Jim Schwartz was there, why couldn't he have said something about Schwartz was his first NFL coach, essentially?
It really sounds like Calvin Johnson has a lot of unresolved anger with whatever the hell happened to him between as a Lion and how his career ended.
Well, maybe there's something, Al, that we don't know. You and I don't know.
We're not privy to. There's stuff that may have. There's likely stuff that went down that no one knows other than himself.
My advice to the Lions. My advice, not that they need my advice, but my advice to the Lions is.
Oh, they could use it. Go for it.
Well, stop it. Just stop it. Yeah. Just stop it. Stop trying to bring Calvin Johnson back. Stop it.
Exactly. Right.
It's just making them worse. It's making everything worse. Just stop it. Just stop.
I think that's the best piece of advice I've heard yet about the Lions. Just move on. Stop it. That makes perfect sense.
It's like any relationship. When you're chasing somebody, whether it's a romantic relationship, any relationship, business, professional, when you're chasing somebody who's not into you or who is not interested in you, you just come off looking like a fool if you keep chasing that person.
Right.
And the Lions should just, cut it. Done. It's done. Yeah. It's never going to be. There's been multiple chances for Johnson to come back into the fold. Hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. Now, I will say this. Having said all that, Charlie Bednarik, who was Mr. Eagle, Concrete Charlie, of course, Mr. Eagle,
the last man to play both ways in the NFL.
Big time beef with the Eagles. Years. Even openly rooted against the Eagles in one of the Super Bowls that they played, which is so Bednarik. Yeah. And it was over. He had written a book. This is how silly this was. He had written a book and wanted the Eagles to buy these books and then give them to the players, is what he wanted them to do.
Right.
And Jeff Lurie, who was the owner of the Eagles, said no. Now, why Lurie said no, I have no idea. That's a chump change. 50 books times $20. He didn't do it. And so Bednarik got ticked off, and I don't blame him, frankly. But now Bednarik did let it probably fester way too long. Yeah. But he finally, before he died, got back, made amends with the Eagles. Gale Sayers, Dick Butkus, had a big time thing with the Bears. That was over an injury and health and stuff. But even Butkus and Hallis didn't speak for years. Yeah. But he came back to the organization. Davey Keon with the Maple Leafs, big time fallout. Years he didn't talk to them. Many times the Leafs wanted him to come back for old timers games and things. Wouldn't do it. Finally came back. So there is some precedent for these things to, but usually what happens, Al, the reason they kind of come back in is because they just run their course. I mean, it becomes so long with when it comes with Bednarik and with Butkus and with Keon, it just becomes so long. It's like, well, what the hell are we doing here? It's not because the team kept, chasing after him every year. It's just that finally the player decides. It's always the player that decides. It's never the team.
Right.
The player decides. Well, enough is enough. Let's finally let bygones. But it's the player that makes that decision. It's not born out of any sort of throwing money at somebody and, well, please come back. The player makes that decision on his own accord. So now down the line, Calvin Johnson's only 36 years old. Down the line, he may decide 5, 6, 7, who knows how many years down the line, that, okay, you know what? And that may be because either Rod Wood leaves or something happens, Martha Ford dies or something happens that jars him. Yeah. But only he will make that decision. The Lions have to stop trying to reach out to this guy because it makes the organization look even worse. And I can't even believe that that's even possible, worse than they already are.
Yeah, and one other thing to keep in mind, because I see fans ask, well, how come Calvin Johnson keeps talking about it? It's the media who asked him, and then he answers their question. That's some people that this has become a topic because he was elected to the Hall of Fame, or sometimes he'll be out promoting his business. No, he's big into the CBD, into the pot business, and that's when the media asks, "Oh, how are things with you with the Lions?" And then this starts all over again. So, and I'm not holding it against the media because that's their job, So, but you're right. This is a whole mess that at this point everybody needs to walk away, go to a neutral corner, and just let things be for however long it takes. And I hope this is the last time we talk about it for quite some time, because I think that's the best advice anybody could take, Greg, is just stop it, move on, everybody get on with their lives, and then we can all watch football. I'm with you there. Speaking of football, we got one more topic we should really need to talk about, because it really is an example of how being a college graduate doesn't make you smart. And out in West Michigan, Highland Hospital has been using Kirk Cousins, the Vikings QB. Cousins obviously went to school in West Michigan and quarterbacked Michigan State before he went to the NFL. He was a spokesperson for the Highland Hospital system. Well, they dropped him as a spokesperson because Cousins was making anti-vaccine comments after returning from quarantine following close contact with someone who was exposed to COVID. Cousins is refusing to get vaccinated, and this is where it really got ridiculous. When he was suggesting a plexiglass surround was better for him than getting the vaccine. No, he's been when he came back and was talking to the media after he came back from his COVID issue. He did the, well, it's a personal reason that I'm not going to get into why I'm not vaccinated. I'm going to go through every protocol, and I'll do whatever it takes to stay healthy, except get the vaccine, which he was roundly ridiculed for. And that's when Highland Hospital decided we got to cut ties with this clown. And this also came after, and when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, when head coach Mike Zimmer expressed extreme frustration and his players not getting vaccinated. I think they're one of the lowest vaccinated teams in the league. And his quote was, "These guys, some of them just won't do it. I shouldn't say it, but some of the things they read are just woof out there." That quote just says it all. That's when they say, I'm doing my research, and then Zimmer just calls them out on their quote-unquote research. So,
right.
But Kirk Cousins, here's a starting quarterback who was being paid $35 million a year to be the Vikings under center for the Vikings, and he's refusing to get vaccinated. And as we have said in the past on this podcast, anybody in the NFL who's refusing to get vaccinated is putting their team at a competitive disadvantage. And then when you have one of the leaders of the team refusing to get vaccinated, the Vikings are screwed. They really, I can understand. Mike Zimmer must be pulling his hair out at this point. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And that's the other thing. If they really... whenever these guys, Cousins isn't the only one. There are a bunch of fairly well-known NFL players who have trotted out it's a personal choice, I can't go into it kind of excuse. If they really, really, well, I'll just say it. Why can't they just come out and say it? Why don't they say, I think the vaccine has nanobites, or it's controlled by Bill Gates, or it's going to kill me, or blah, blah. No, they never give a reason why. They just say, it's my choice. But by saying that, it leaves things open to wild speculation as to why. At the very, what can they say? I'm a conservative and I don't believe in them. At the very least, I would have a little more respect for the guy for being honest in his stupidity than these guys who continually dance around the question with it's my body, my choice, even though these same guys pump their bodies full of antibiotics and painkillers and steroids and whatever the hell other kind of additive they can find at GNC or whatever the hell it's called. So the hypocrisy of someone like Kirk Cousins, who has probably pounded all kinds of painkillers to get on the field, and now is like, I can't take a vaccine because I'm afraid of what's going to do to my body? Oh, my God, the hypocrisy, the stupidity, I just can't wrap my head around it. And he's not the only one, and I am so rooting for a guy like Cousins to cost his team a game and see the fallout, because Sean Freud is going to be glorious. And it's going to happen, and I just can't wait to see the fallout, just because maybe it's going to take an incident where a team actually misses a game and misses a paycheck because of stupidity like Kirk Cousins to finally drive through some people's head, I better get vaccinated. And if that's what it takes, I'm all for it.
I think, Al, what the NFL is doing here is they're letting – I think what they would prefer to have done, what they would rather have done, really, I think they would rather have mandated the vaccines. I think if it was something that they could have gotten past the NFL Players Association relatively easily.
It could have been very easily, without the union, they could have just said so. Yeah, right. This is how it's going to be.
Right. But I think now...
But it has to be bargained.
Right. So I think that what they're doing now is the next best thing, which is letting them eat their young, letting the players eat their young.
Make their lives miserable.
Right. I mean, if, you mentioned we talked about this on the show last time about what the punishment, if you will, what the punishment is if a game has to be forfeited because of, you don't have enough guys to play, then, that's...
No one gets paid. That's tens of thousands of dollars of punishment.
Well, again, Al, not everybody in the NFL makes the kind of money that Kirk Cousins makes. So you got to.
Well, that's what I mean. It's going to hurt the guys, the second stringers, and the backups.
Right, exactly.
It's going to kill them. It won't hurt a guy like Cousins who makes $30 million, right?
And it's unavoidable. I mean, it's avoidable. It's avoidable, and now you've got a potential locker room situation now because you've got. These, and now which is a coach's nightmare, which he has no control over, by the way.
Yep.
And it's one thing for the backup left guard of the Houston Texans to say I'm not going to take the vaccine, versus the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings saying I'm not going to take the vaccine.
Yeah. One's replaceable, one's not. That's the issue.
And not only is one replaceable and one's not, but one controls the fate of the game and the other one doesn't. Let's face it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's. And as I was telling you before we started recording, this hits close to home because my father was diagnosed with COVID this week.
Right.
And he's 80 years old.
Yeah.
Thank God he's vaccinated, because if he wasn't, he'd be on a ventilator right now, and I'd probably be on a plane to Florida, waiting for him to pass away. That's how things were a year ago. That's how things were a few months ago, for Christ's sake.
Right.
But he's vaccinated, and essentially for him, it just turned into more. I wouldn't call it an inconvenience. He was just very uncomfortable for a few days, where he lost his sense of smell, lost his sense of taste. He just felt unwell. He had a slight fever, but nothing really bad, and he never had the respiratory issues that normally comes with an unvaccinated person. So that alone, I'm not a religious person, but I would think whoever helped come up with this vaccine essentially saved my father's life, and thank my God, my dad, who was smart enough, and he's a boomer through and through at 80 years old. He is a baby boomer. That he was smart enough, him and my stepmom, to get vaccinated as soon as they could. And there's so many people out there who would be alive today if they. But you have someone like Kirk Cousins, who was a blithering idiot. And I think anybody with his same attitude, I have absolutely no respect for it. I know you feel the same way. It's exhausting at this point to see the same shit trotted out with these guys. It's a personal choice. I can't really. I don't want to go into it. I think it's a decision for everybody to make. I need to do my own research. It's exhausting at this point. And one thing I am so looking forward to is that probably within the next month, because right now the vaccines are still considered an emergency approval. I believe within the next month or so, they will be considered approved, quote unquote approved by the FDA. And that is one big excuse you always see trotted out by the likes of Cousins. Well, it's not approved by the FDA. It's an emergency approval right now, so I'm not sure about the testing, blah, 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 blah. I wonder how that goalpost is going to move, Greg, when the FDA says, bam, drops the hammer, this is officially approved like any other specific drug or vaccine, And I wonder how guys like Cousins are going to move the goalpost to avoid taking it. And you know it's going to happen.
Of course it's going to happen. The folks that are using that not FDA approved, who are playing that card, after that card is seemingly removed from the deck, they're still going to say, well, I don't trust the FDA.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, 5 minutes ago you were saying that you didn't trust it because it wasn't FDA approved. You can see it coming a mile away.
Yep.
You're right. It's very exhausting, and it's. I hate that it's seeping into the sports world, but I guess it was inevitable.
Yeah, it was, and unfortunately, it's here to stay because I think we're going to be having conversations like this for however long this podcast goes, Greg. There's going to be political discussions because that's today's world.
Right.
All right, we need to get the hell out of here because we've been ranting and raving for an hour and a half, and I'm sure Greg's got a cocktail waiting for him. Bean is probably just dying to get in your lap right now. Oh, hey, before we do wrap up, we talked about this on the last podcast. I remember I asked you, what should the Wings do with Todd Bertuzzi? Do you think they would trade him? And actually, that was another signing that came while we were off.
Yep.
Tyler Bertuzzi inked a 2-year, $9.5 million contract. Bertuzzi has averaged 21 goals and 27 assists over the 2 years before he got hurt this past year. But he's still been one of the Wings' most effective players. This is essentially a bridge deal. Bertuzzi will be an unrestricted free agent at the end of this, at the end of the 2 years. And I think this was a signing they had to make. And I have no problems with honestly, I have no problems with anything Yzerman has done in free agency at this point. Because also today they inked Jacob Varna, who they got in the Mantha trade. They avoided arbitration on a 3-year, $15.75 million deal. So these are two guys that are who belong in the top two lines that they really needed. They're both left wings, and I was like, great. They seem like very fair deals to all parties involved, and that's always a welcome thing to see in sports, where it seems like it's a deal the Wings are happy with, it's a deal that the players are happy with, it's a deal the fan base is happy with, and are these guys going to? These guys aren't stars, but they are the kind of players you need around stars,
of course,
to be a successful team.
Of course.
I was thrilled on both of these signings. I'm like, great, this sounds awesome. I mean, the money is reasonable.
Yep.
They're both solid players,
and
they're both guys who could be long-term solutions on this team, and that's what's needed. So, but I thought we better bring up Bertuzzi just because we had talked about it. Now that's been decided what they're going to do. So, yay, Bertuzzi. So, and I keep wanting to call him Todd for some reason. Not for some reason, but All right, with that, now that I got that short topic out of the way of the Wings, now we've gone through the entire show outline, Greg. Now we can go to our jerk of the week. Who's your jerk?
We were talking about Calvin Johnson. You said, why does he keep talking about it? And you said, well, because the media keeps asking him. Okay, why are we still talking about it? Maybe I'm missing the mark, and maybe I don't. Maybe shame on me. But why are we still talking about the Palace brawl with the Pacers from 2004? Why is this still a thing? Why is this still a thing? Netflix has come out with a documentary apparently called Malice at the Palace, and from what I'm reading of it, I've not seen it, of course, but when I'm reading about it, it doesn't sound like it's that big. It doesn't really. First of all, there's nothing about this incident that has any sort of hidden, like you could tell the story behind it, kind of a thing. We all know what happened. We saw it happen in front of our very eyes. There was no hidden agenda here. There's no, second gunman on the grassy knoll. We know what happened, okay? Why do we have to have a document? And a lot of the people who were involved in this, by the way, from what I'm reading, didn't even talk on camera anyway. I don't know why we have what is so appealing to people about wanting to continue to harp on this thing that happened 2004. It was almost 17 years ago. Yeah, was it ugly? Of course. Was it one of the ugliest nights in the NBA? Yeah, probably. I'll buy that, I guess. But so, I mean, it happened. Nobody really got hurt. I don't think it really. They try to pump it as the Pacers and the Pistons had quite a rivalry back then. Okay, the Pistons knocked the Pacers out of the playoffs a couple of years in a row, in those years, fine. Yeah. I never looked at the Pacers and the Pistons as having a great rivalry, but whatever. Yeah. I just don't know why we're still talking about it. There's no. I don't know. It's like constantly bringing up the Natalie Wood thing. Nobody's ever going to solve the Natalie Wood murder. I'm calling it a murder. Death. Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever going to solve that. Every once in a while, somebody comes out with a documentary, and I always say, well, unless you're going to tell me who did it or what happened, I don't want to see it. Because that thing's been gone over and over to nobody's benefit. Why we're bringing this Malice at the Palace thing up again, which the thing with the Avalanche and the Red Wings when Darren McCarty went after Claude Lemieux, and Waugh fought the goalie and whatever. I can see that being brought up because that was a seminal moment in a year where the Red Wings finally won the Stanley Cup. It's entertaining. It was a hockey fight. Yeah. This I don't understand why this is so fascinating to people, I guess, is my question. If you look at the video of what happened, the whole thing takes like 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It was ugly, no question about it. But my gosh, I don't. So I guess my jerk of the week is the folks who made this documentary, because I don't understand what the purpose is of this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I think factors into this is that apparently, I believe this documentary is almost entirely from the Pacers' point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
they couldn't get any Pistons to talk about it.
Yeah, because honestly, this was you could fault the fan that threw the cup that landed on our test, but it was the damn Pacers that bum rushed the stands. Wasn't the Pistons? It was the Pacers. That Malice at the Palace was entirely the Pacers' fault. And if Artest doesn't get a bug up his ass and charge stands, none of this happens. So I think this documentary, Greg, where you nailed it, is like, does everything need a documentary anymore or an oral history?
Right.
That's essentially what we're at. Anything that happens gets an oral history or a documentary. Because they've seen the success of the ESPN 30 for 30s.
Right.
And to their credit, most of the 30 for 30s are very, very, very well done.
Yeah.
And for that, but what I also like about the 30 for 30s is sometimes they're very unorthodox topics.
Yeah.
So, but this, it's an hour-long documentary from the Pacers' point of view.
God.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch the damn thing. You nailed it because, next thing you know, we'll see an oral history of why Rasheed Wallace didn't cover Robert Horry in the 2005 finals. I don't know. You nailed it. Not everything needs a documentary or an oral history. So I'm with you there. All right, my jerk of the week, Greg. Major League Baseball has really outed themselves as of late as it's all about money first and foremost, and first ever and always, essentially, when it comes to them. And this week, between the money grab that is the silly Field of Dreams game that they're having this week, to it seems like almost all the rule changes they've made has been aimed at just making more money for for the owners, essentially. And the latest in a long string of that is MLB is reportedly in talks with Barstool Sports about broadcasting games. Barstool Sports. Who are the president of Barstool Sports is Dave Portnoy, who's a University of Michigan graduate, who was an absolute and utter piece of shit. I had some dealings with him back in my early days of blogging. I exchanged a few emails with him about possible business venture that completely fell through. But I to this day, I'm like, thank God it didn't. It didn't work out. I haven't really talked much about this, but he contacted me years ago when I was very early on in blogging, and I was still doing my Wayne Fonts Experience blog, and he was interested in getting me to essentially start a Detroit Barstool.
Uh-huh.
And we exchanged a few emails about it, and it just never worked out.
Right.
And I'm kind of relieved it didn't work out, because as things have gone on, I just learned about what a vile human Portnoy is. Misogynistic, racist, doesn't, essentially, he's essentially a 40-something guy who still has the emotional maturity of a teenager, essentially.
Right, yeah.
And he acts the same way. And, of course, he's also a big-time right-winger. He was big into Trump and all that crap. And for some reason, Major League Baseball wants to go into business with this company. This is the same company that, remember ESPN was going to do something with them, and they made one episode of a show with the guy they call Big Cat and what's his name, the Pro Football Talk commenter. Those they have a huge podcast on the Barstool Sports Network, and ESPN thought Barstool was so toxic they made the one episode and said, "Nah, we can't go through with that with this company." Yet here you got, excuse me, Major League Baseball about ready to supposedly cut a deal with Barstool Sports to broadcast baseball. I mean, that, say what you will about if you enjoy that company's sense of humor, and there are people that do, you still can't untangle that from the awfulness that is their management and Dave Portnoy and how they treat people of color, how they've treated women, how they've treated the LGBTQ people. It's just an ugly organization, and the fact that Major League Baseball is turning a blind eye to years of evidence of them being vile people and still wanting to go into business with them, I can't. I don't know what the hell they're thinking at the offices of MLB anymore. So my jerk of the week is Major League Baseball for wanting to go into business with Barstool Sports. It just boggles my mind, and it's ridiculous, to say the very least.
Right.
All right, let's get the hell out of here, Greg. So if you could, get out the thank yous and what's coming up and social media stuff.
Sure, absolutely. Just want to remind everybody to, not that we don't want you to tune in all the time, but specifically to let you know that we'll be having our Red Wings radio voice Ken Kal with us on September 7th, so we're looking forward to that. Whether we have a guest on August 24th, I don't know. We'll see, but for sure we got Ken booked for September 7th, just before Red Wings start training camp, so that'll be kind of timely. So tune in for that. Follow me on Twitter at Greg Eno. Read my WordPress Out of Bounds blog every week. Follow the Knee Jerks on Twitter at the Knee Jerks. And want to thank my lovely wife Sharon for making this all possible, frankly, and for putting up with this nonsense. And thank you, Big Al, for making Tuesday night so gosh darn fun.
Yes, and as always, when you listen to the show, we're on all the usual places: Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon Music, Deezer, Radio Public. Pretty much any place podcasts are aggravated, any place where you want to listen to a show, just search for the Knee Jerks or search for the Knee Jerks, Eno and Big Al. You should be able to listen and subscribe through that whatever particular app of your choice. We're pretty much everywhere. We're also at thekneejerks.net. That's the homepage. That'll take you right to the show notes. If you want to directly download the MP3 to do what you will, all the links and everything to the social media and where you can find a podcast are all at thekneejerks.net. As always, I want to give a shout-out to Greg for having to tear himself away from Bean for a couple hours every couple weeks to talk sports with me. Give a shout-out to Linda, who was in the ER saving lives and will be up north. At this time, 48 hours from now, I'll be drinking beer at the cabin, probably in front of a fire, and I can't wait. And for that matter, Greg is going on vacation as well. He'll be drinking cocktails by a fire next week. So we'll both taking a mental health break from everything going on in the world, go into our own little up north bubbles. Can't wait. So after we'll both be refreshed in a couple weeks, and we'll have some exhibition football to talk about, and hopefully, we probably will be dominated by football for the next few months at this point. At least not until the Pistons or Red Wings start training camp, which isn't for at least another 6 weeks or so. So lots of football on tap. So until then, this is Al Beaton saying good evening, good luck, and aloha.
Ciao, Italy, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.